welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a foundation review, one of my favorite videos to film. And I have three foundations here today that I'm going to share with you. First is the Tom Ford Waterproof Foundation and Concealer. I got it in the shade 1.5 Cream. The Raviv Moisturizing Veil, it's called Le Tint Moisturizing Veil. I have it in the shade 1. There's very few shades with this one. And then one that is not really on the radar too much that I see talked about, but I was really interested to try it out, is the Oxygenetix foundation. It's an oxygenating foundation, and I have it in the shade Ivory. So let's first start with the most talked about, and that is the Tom Ford Waterproof Foundation and Concealer. Sorry, I've got like a hair on my face. So I already love the Traceless foundation stick, the stick that he makes, and it gives gorgeous coverage. I like to best apply it with a beauty blender. I really think it works well with a beauty blender. So when I received this, it's the same shade as I used before. I know they used to make one lighter, I think like Alabaster, but this is the lightest now. It's actually what I'm wearing today. When I received this, I initially put it on with like my Artist Oval 8 brush, which I have here. Let me show you. This one, the really fancy brush. Then I tried a buffing brush, and it is, I mean, this stuff is heavy. And it was like, nope. Within just like a few hours, like it looked cakey, and it just was not as flawless as I wanted it to be. And I was like, let me try the Beauty Blender, because I've had such success with the stick foundation, which is also very heavy, but using it with the Beauty Blender. That was it. That was like the two were like meant to be together. So I used the Beauty Blender and just kind of like, you know, stippled it on, and it just goes on so beautifully. It's enables it to like sheer it out a little bit. The Beauty Blender enables the foundation to really sheer out quite nicely, and it just looks like undetectable on the skin. It is very long wearing. I find that I can get a good like 5 to 6 hours out of it without needing to like touch up, or not that I really touch up my foundation, but perhaps like add some powder or see it like pulling apart anywhere. No, I didn't find it pulling apart anywhere. It worked really well with my oily skin, like my combination skin. So especially my T-zone, I wasn't getting too shiny. I definitely needed to use powder like once throughout the day. I like to test it first with no powder to see how long I can go, and if I need to set it with a powder. I don't find that I need to set it with a powder, but I do find that like around a 4.5 hour mark, I do like to put a little powder in my T-zone, but I find that maybe as the weather gets a little colder, I may not need to do that. So I was really, really impressed by this. I think this will be one of those type of foundations where you can just use like a smidge and it'll cover your entire face. It's one of those ones that you'll have in your collection and you're like, oh, going strong for years later because you just can't get through it all. Though I was anticipating it to be like a really strong, like almost like stage makeup. Like I was expecting to be really, really heavy. It does have very significant coverage, but it's not as, when I apply it with a buffing brush, like I think it starts to get a little too cakey and kind of stage makeup-y. And that could just be my skin. It could work better on different skin types, but the Beauty Blender is like the way to go. Because once I put it on with the Beauty Blender, it is a gorgeous, gorgeous finish. And it does cover everything: redness, pores, large pores, uneven skin tone, dark spots. It covers it all. And you can kind of build up in other areas that you want to. And I find that I don't necessarily need to always wear a concealer under my eyes with this because this gives such good coverage. All right, let's move on to the Raviv Moisturizing Veil. So this is a skincare-based foundation, and I use a lot of Raviv skincare products. It's actually the SPF that's in my morning routine right now that I'm using. I love their SPF 50. It's very like moisturizing and hydrating. So I was really curious about this. It's a skincare-based foundation, so it feels like a serum when it's in your hand. It's like really, really runny, and it comes in very few shades. So I was like, is the light gonna be like this shade number 1? Is it gonna be light enough for me? And when I first put it in my hand, it is orange. Like it is so dark. But the crazy thing about it is as I'm applying it, in about 2 to 3 minutes later, it's self-adjusting. Now it doesn't claim to be self-adjusting, but I found that within just like 2 or 3 minutes, it didn't look too dark. And really, I mean, it just goes on like second skin. The only thing with it is it's very dewy, as I find with a lot of skincare-based foundations. They can be exceptionally dewy, which on some skin types is beautiful. For me, I needed to definitely set it with a mattifying powder. It's very second skin. It looks, I mean, you can see your skin through it, so it's not going to really give you the significant amount of coverage like a Tom Ford would. But if you already have kind of good skin and you just want to even things out and something that doesn't feel too heavy, this does not feel too heavy at all on the skin. Now, I loaned it to my mom to try because for me, like I said, I have to touch up with powder a few times throughout the day because it does get a little shiny. But I gave it to her and she has more drier, like a little bit drier skin. And she first looked at that, she's a little bit darker than me. She first looked at the color in her hand and she was like, I'm going to look like an Oompa Loompa. And then I was like, no, just try it. It will self-adjust to your skin. And then she said, she put it on, she came up like an hour later and she was like, it did. How does it do that? And I was like, I don't know. But it really like self-adjusted to her skin and my skin, which I guess is how they can get around having such few shades in the range. But anyway, on her skin, like the dewy factor was exactly what her skin needs. Like it looked beautiful. It looked like she had a facial. I said to her, like, she wore it a few days later and I was like, what's on your skin? And she's like, that Raviv stuff you gave me. And I was like, it made her skin look very radiant and glowy and fresh and just beautiful, absolutely beautiful, like almost like fresh from a facial kind of look. So I definitely think it's probably a little bit better designed for someone with more dry skin, though I think if you have combination skin, you definitely can get away with it as well. You just may need to touch up in the T-zone. All right, the Oxygenetix. This is a foundation that I've heard about because I had heard that it was a very good skincare-based foundation, or if you have like problematic skin or, you know, congested skin or your skin breaks out, this is a good option to try because it really helps. It won't break you out anymore and it really helps to prevent your skin from getting congested or breaking out even further. And I was like, interested. So I had a sample or the company sent me this, product to try. And in 2 shades, one was a little bit darker than this. I can't remember what the color was, but I gave it to my mom. But Ivory worked really well for me. I wasn't sure what to expect. I was like, is this medium coverage, sheer, full? So it's like falls right in the middle in medium coverage. It's amazing at covering like redness. Like my skin instantly was very like even and I have some red spots or red areas and some hyperpigmentation on my forehead. It covered everything, but without looking like it was covering anything. It just kind of looked like that was my skin. And then it's a very natural finish. Natural more, if it's going to lean one side or the other, it's more radiant than it is matte, but more of a natural finish. Now, what I really loved about it was as the day went on, my skin stayed looking very hydrated and fresh. So a lot of times with some foundations, like I get dehydrated as the day goes on. Maybe I'm not drinking enough water, I'm running about, the weather's changing, I'm hot, I'm cold. And my skin will often kind of begin to look a little, I don't know, dehydrated. It can look patchy in places, oily in others. And I noticed that it stayed so balanced the days that I would use this. And I was like, is there a correlation? But I found the more I used it, on those days, my skin was very balanced. It wasn't too oily, too dry. It just was kind of all over, very like neutral, very balanced. And then on the days that I would use this, I would remove my makeup and I was like, did I exfoliate today? Like, why is my skin so smooth and soft? And I would test it out. Like one day I would use this foundation, one day I would use another foundation and not change my skincare. And it was the days that I would use this foundation that I would remove it and my skin was so soft. It was like my skin was getting better the longer this was on my base. So, but like the formula, it says breathable formula for healthier skin that provides complete coverage. So I like it because, like I said, it really gives fantastic coverage. Doesn't feel like feels weightless, but it's not going to, clog the skin anymore or congest it anymore. It's actually going to help be like a breathable foundation, especially if you have problematic or acne prone skin, or maybe skin that like acts up a little bit or can be very hormonal. I have really, really been loving this, and I think it's such a unique foundation, and one that I don't feel I've heard talked about. I've heard talked about a little bit here and there. So when they had sent me information about it, I'll be honest, they sent me like multiple emails over the course of like the past 6 or 7 months, and I was always like, I don't know, I don't think so. And then I had seen it, I don't know, somewhere on Instagram, and I was like, oh, maybe I should try this. So I was like reading up about it online, and it really got some great reviews. So that's when I was kind of like, oh, maybe I will try it out. I mean, I'm so picky sometimes when it comes to foundation. Like, there's so many good claims out there, and I can only try so many foundations. And I really like to try formulas that I feel are kind of unique or would be a good fit for me, or even like a good find for someone that's maybe not finding a foundation for them in the traditional department store or Sephora brands. So I thought this was a good option to throw in and talk to you guys about. So I hope you found this helpful, and maybe you wanted to try one of these yourself. And I'll link all of them below, as well as the shades that I'm using. And I'd love to hear if you've used any of these or what your experience has been. I know many of you have been asking me about the Tom Ford and my thoughts in it, so I'm happy to kind of share that. And I'd love to know if you've tried it and what your thoughts are. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care. Bye-bye.